Melissa then agreed to take a DNA test. And on Thanksgiving, she met her brother and then later her parents.
I feel that was the best day that I ever had in my whole life when I saw Melissa again.
And meeting her for the first time, it was hard to put into words. It was just a dream come true.
Fort Worth, Texas. A quiet street. A hot summer morning. August 23rd, 1971. A young mother, just 21 years old, trying to rebuild her life after a painful breakup. She's recently moved back in with a roommate, working long hours, trying to keep her baby safe. The baby is Melissa Highsmith, just 21 months old. That day her mother has to leave early for her shift at the restaurant. And like many young mothers in crisis, she turns to the classifieds. A babysitter. Someone local, just for the day. The ad is short, simple. It reads, "In need of childcare." Immediate. She gets a response. A woman calls, says her name is Ruth Johnson. She sounds professional, polite, older. She offers to meet at the house, but the mother is running late. She never sees the sitter. So instead she tells her roommate to hand Melissa over when Ruth arrives. A woman in white gloves, sunglasses, polished, calm. She knocks, smiles, says she's here for the baby. And just like that, she walks out the front door holding Melissa in her arms, and never comes back. She's gone. That's what Melissa's mother remembers most. The second she came home and heard the words, her legs gave out. Her daughter wasn't with the roommate. She wasn't down the block. She was gone. No note, no phone call, no ransom. The police open a case immediately. Missing person, possible abduction. But there's a problem. There are no security cameras in 1971, no cell phones, no texts, no alerts, just word of mouth, hand-drawn sketches, and a mother begging strangers to help. Flyers go up across Fort Worth. Melissa's little face, tiny cheeks, a baby bow in her hair, stapled to telephone poles, gas stations, laundromats. And then the leads start coming in, but they're all dead ends. Someone claims to have seen a woman boarding a bus in Houston. Another says they saw a woman matching the description working in a diner in Oklahoma. But every time investigators follow the lead, the trail goes cold. The case goes national. FBI involvement. Interstate checks. Still, nothing. The woman called Ruth Johnson didn't exist. Years pass. Melissa's mother never gives up. She holds on to the baby photo, tells her story every year, lights candles, leaves the porch light on, prays that maybe, one day her baby will walk back through that door. But the longer it goes, the fewer people believe she ever will. Melissa Highsmith becomes one of America's oldest unresolved child abduction cases. A name locked in time, a mystery that broke a mother, shattered a family, and haunted investigators for half a century. But no one, not even her own mother, could imagine what really happened, or that the baby she lost had been living just minutes away all along. She didn't know she was missing. She didn't know she had been taken. She didn't know her name wasn't real. For over 50 years, Melissa Highsmith lived a life that was never meant to be hers. She was raised as someone else. Melanie Walden. She grew up just a few hours from where she was taken, but she might as well have been on the other side of the planet. The woman who raised her, the same woman who answered that ad in 1971, told everyone Melissa was her daughter. There were no questions, no doubts, no visits to the doctor, no connection to the outside world. She kept Melissa isolated, controlled, watched. She was warned to never talk to strangers. She was told family was dangerous. She was told never to question. "You don't belong to anyone but me," the woman would say. As Melissa entered her teens, something felt wrong. She couldn't explain it. She just knew that her life didn't fit, that something inside her didn't match the name on her papers. She started asking questions. Where was her birth certificate? Why were there no baby photos? Why couldn't she get her own ID? The woman would snap, slam doors, threaten, shame her. She told Melissa she was broken, that she had mental problems, that no one else would ever love her. Melissa believed it. By the age of 15, she ran away. Life on the streets wasn't easier, but it was free. She slept under bridges, in shelters, on couches. She worked odd jobs, struggled with trust, battled trauma she couldn't name. For decades, Melissa drifted through adulthood like a ghost, living under the name she was given, not the one she was born with. She had children of her own, got married, tried to build a normal life, but something never settled. She couldn't explain why she didn't feel whole, why no part of her past added up. She looked in the mirror and saw a stranger. She couldn't tell you where she was born, or what hospital she came from, or what her parents looked like. She had no origin story, just a silent gap stretching back to 1971. Meanwhile, 1,000 miles away, her real family kept searching, year after year. False leads, tips, psychics, hopes crushed and rebuilt again. Her mother aged with grief, her father with guilt, her siblings with a hole in their hearts, a sister they never got to know. And every birthday that passed, they wondered, is she out there? Does she even know who she is? Is she alive? They couldn't let go, because to them, Melissa wasn't just a memory, she was missing, and still loved. 51 years after her abduction, technology would finally catch up, and Melissa, the woman who thought she had no past, was about to have her entire world flipped upside down. 2022. Half a century after Melissa Highsmith vanished, her family is still searching. But by now, the trail is ice cold. Melissa's mother is in her 70s. Her siblings have grown into adults, some with children of their own. And still, they're looking for a sister they've never known. A sister who's never even known she was missing. They never stopped wondering. They never stopped hoping. And then one day, something extraordinary happens. Melissa's father, Jeffrey Highsmith, decides to do something simple, something millions of people have done before him. He orders a 23andMe DNA kit, not because he expects a miracle, but because it's all he has left. He spits in a tube, mails it off, and waits. Weeks go by. Then, the email comes in. You have a new relative match. At first it's confusing. The name isn't one he recognizes, Melanie Brown, but the match is undeniable. A woman around 50 years old, with DNA that closely links to his own. A daughter, his missing daughter. It seems impossible, but Jeffrey shares the results with the rest of the family. They start digging, tracing social media, connecting names. They reach out cautiously, afraid it might be another false lead, another heartbreak. But this time, they find photos. One look, and they know. The cheekbones, the smile, the eyes. It's her. We knew in our hearts before the DNA confirmed it. Melissa's sister would later say, we just knew. Still, the DNA had to speak. The family privately arranges a separate test with Melissa, still known then as Melanie Brown. She agrees. She's confused, skeptical, hopeful, terrified. What if they're right? What if her whole life has been a lie? Days later, the results come back. Positive match. 51 years after her abduction, Melissa Highsmith has been found alive, living under a false identity, unaware of who she truly was. And for the first time in over 5 decades, her family can say the words they'd waited a lifetime to say. We found her. But this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Because while a match can reconnect blood, it can't undo a lifetime of pain, confusion, and identity loss. Melissa still had to face the truth and decide whether she was ready to meet the family she never knew she had. She had been missing for 51 years. She had lived an entire life under a different name. And now Melissa Highsmith was standing on the threshold of the truth. It wasn't just DNA that confirmed it. It was the face staring back at her from those old missing posters. The childhood she was robbed of, the family that never gave up, the name that was taken from her. They arranged the meeting privately. No press, no fanfare, just a home in Fort Worth, just a room filled with trembling hands, nervous smiles, and 51 years of pain. Melissa walked in, unsure what to expect. She didn't remember her mother. She didn't know her siblings. She didn't know the stories they shared. But the moment her mother saw her, she fell apart. Her mother, Alta Apentenko, had carried guilt her entire life. She had blamed herself every day for trusting the wrong woman, for going to work, for handing her daughter over through a roommate's hands. Now in front of her stood her baby, all grown up, alive, beautiful, and finally, home. They embraced and sobbed. There are no words in that kind of moment, no script, no perfect phrase. Just decades of grief breaking open into joy. "You're not a ghost anymore," her sister whispered. "You're real." They showed Melissa photos, her baby face on old flyers, family birthdays without her, the holidays she was missed. She was stunned. She had never seen these pictures before, never heard these names, never imagined that a whole family had been mourning her while she was still alive. But the reunion was not without its weight. Melissa had to face the truth that the woman who raised her wasn't her mother, that her identity, the name, the past, the beliefs, were all built on lies, that she had survived abuse, fear, and isolation, not just by chance, but because someone had stolen her from everything that was meant to be hers. And there were no easy answers. Why did the kidnapper do it? What did they gain? And how had no one figured it out sooner? The woman who abducted Melissa, Ruth Johnson, or whoever she really was, had disappeared into the cracks of time. By the time Melissa discovered the truth, that woman was long gone. There would be no arrest, no trial, no justice, not in the traditional sense. The statute of limitations had expired decades ago. "I don't need revenge," Melissa would later say. "I just needed the truth." Still, the reunion sparked something powerful, a need to reclaim what was stolen, to take her name back, to take her life back. Melissa legally changed her identity, restoring her birth name, and stepping into the role she never got to grow into. She stood in court, hand in hand with her husband, and reclaimed her life as Melissa Highsmith. "I was lost, but now I'm found." But even as the dust settled, one question remained. What now? What do you do with a life once stolen, and suddenly returned? For most of her life, Melissa Highsmith believed she was someone else. She believed she had been born into a life of pain, that she had no past, that her story began in chaos and would end in silence. But in 2022, her truth was returned. After 51 years, the child who vanished in a stolen moment was finally home. And now the hardest part began: healing. Melissa didn't get justice in the courtroom. The woman who took her is still unnamed, uncharged, and likely deceased. The legal window for prosecution expired long ago. There was no official arrest, no trial, no confession. But what Melissa did get was something just as powerful: a choice. The chance to choose who she wanted to be, finally, as herself. She renewed her marriage vows with her husband, but this time walked down the aisle escorted by her biological father, Jeffrey Highsmith. She reconnected with her siblings, now adults, strangers once, but bonded through DNA and decades of longing. She celebrated her first birthday under her real name, a party not just for her age, but for the life that was finally hers to live. She began sharing her story, carefully, vulnerably. Not for fame, not for sympathy, but to show others that it's never too late, that missing people can still be found, that DNA is rewriting cold cases that seemed unsolvable. "I felt like a puzzle piece with no picture for so long," she said. "Now I know where I belong." Melissa has since joined organizations advocating for DNA-based cold case solutions. She encourages families to never stop searching, to test, to trace, to believe. And she offers something else, something rare: forgiveness. "I lost decades, yes," she says, "but I won the truth, and the rest of my life." Her story is now part of a growing number of cases solved, not by police chases or tip lines, but by science, by spit, by hope sealed inside an envelope. Technology brought Melissa back, and through her, thousands of other families now carry one powerful belief: it's not over. Not until you know. Not until they're home. This was the story of Melissa Highsmith, a child taken, a woman found, a life reclaimed, but somewhere, someone else is still missing, still searching, still waiting. If this story moved you, if you believe in truth, in justice, and in hope that never dies, then like this video to push her story further. Comment below if you know someone who's still waiting for answers. Subscribe so we can tell the next story, maybe one you've never heard. And share this story, because someone somewhere might be one click away from being found.